I keep going to Muay Thai class because A, I love doing it with my daughter, and B, I feel good afterwards, and I think that that's the thing too, is like, we are so goal-oriented that we forget sometimes that the journey is the important thing. Like, I wanna have the beach bod, you know? Well, yeah, man, that's great, but isn't it great to feel better, like, than
Right,
yesterday?
right. The things that fitness influencers do that drive me absolutely insane is they will say, "Do this movement to have a body like me," or like, "This is how I built this body." And it's like the dumbest movement, and they're doing it because people are like, "Oh, I've never seen that before." And so it gets views and comments, and that's how it goes viral. But that's not how they built that body. They built that body with the fundamentals of strength training over the course of time with proper nutrition and like 90% of them with the help of steroids.
Right?
That's unrealistic, but they're doing it because it gets views and they shift, they're able to pique the mindset of or the interest of some people that are watching them like, "Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that before." But you will not get that body with that movement almost ever.
Welcome everybody back to the Sean Trey Show. I've got an awesome guest with me. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
So I'm Caleb Whittle. I am a health and fitness coach who made a career change after 10 years in marketing and has had a lot of pivots in his life. And so looking forward to chatting with you, Sean, and being here today.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to have this conversation as well, man, because I've always been into health and fitness. One of the things that's interesting when you're young, health and fitness is often just part of life. You're moving, you're doing stuff. But as you grow older, I'm not saying get old. I don't like that term. I would say as we age and as we go through our life development, continuing to have movement, to have that physical activity is something that people often have to plan. And so it's like I'm entering a new period where I'm looking at my parents that are aging and sitting there going, well, if they had have kept up exercise and fitness, they would probably be in a slightly better position than they're at right now? So how can people integrate that into their daily lives as they go around through life, which is busy?
Well, you actually mentioned a key word there is plan. Um, the people I work with that have been the most successful with it plan it into their day, whether it's setting aside time to be active every day, and it's the same time every day. Oftentimes it's earlier in the morning before the family and kids are awake. That's like their time. Um, Other times they bring their family with them. So walking is one of the best things you can do, and so, uh, uh, pretty much every single one of the people I work with, including myself, we do, walks after dinner, and it's a quality family time, and it's just a good time to be with the family, be outside, and you're being active.
Right.
Also making sure that you choose hobbies that can kind of force you to be active a bit as well. But I think it all comes back to planning it, having it be a part of your day, and it's something you do regularly and you make it your own time because then you set aside time to be active. And if it's not, I know for me, if it's not on my calendar, there's a rare chance it's happening. And so setting aside, blocking that off, that's how you can stay consistent with it and see progress there and continue to be active.
That's awesome. I love that because it's like I uh I was watching this video the other day, a movie with my wife, and J-Lo was in there dancing, and dude, she looks like she's in great shape. She looks like she's in her 20s still. And that's one of the things that, like, I know some people that in their 20s look like they're in their 60s, and I know some people in their 60s that look like they're in their 20s. And I wanna, like, with all of my friends and the people listening, I wanna impress upon you that just because you're in a certain space doesn't mean you have to stay there, or you don't have to kinda go down a path that you don't want to. I had some family members that were starting to deal with some health challenges, and one of it was I had some family members that are starting to deal with, one family member starting to deal with some vascular dementia, and it's not fun.
Nope.
Not but when I was looking up some one of the things, it was like, get them moving. Just keep them going, and it's like, certainly get on the right treatment protocol from an MD, but, like, there are ways to do it, and, like, things that you can do to you can head off heart disease, you can head off different things by having a very active life from an earlier age. And I'm not a doctor, but yet I do know that you can change a lot of your progression of a lot of illnesses and you can promote wellness by getting out and having a simple plan. Simple little things have compounding results over time, you know?
Yeah, and I both my grandparents, who passed away over let's see, grandpa passed away beginning of this year, grandma, I think 5 years ago. Both of them passed away from, dementia, Alzheimer's, and it typically went really downhill really fast after a fall. And
Mm.
so the biggest thing that prevents falls is having good solid muscle mass, especially on your lower extremities, that can help stabilize you as you're getting older. And so having that muscle mass into your 70s, 80s, and 90s, that has massive effects on your mental well-being. And I think it's because of twofold. Number one, you need to be active to build muscle mass and to have muscle mass and
Mhm.
to keep it. But number two, just having that on your frame helps balance out, pun intended, the things
Right?
around your your lifestyle, your joints, your health, promotes good blood flow. All of that plays into effect as you get older and older. And I'm a huge believer in it's never too late to build muscle. Right now, I've been working with my dad who just turned 60 this year over the last year, and that's what we're doing is strength and muscle building, and we're doing that. He's been a runner his entire life, an ultra runner, and so he has the cardiovascular stuff. But he's like, "Oh, I think I need some more muscle mass on my body." So because he saw what happened in his parents, and so one of the biggest preventative ways is to have increased muscle mass on your body.
That's awesome. It's awesome because one of the things that I just love that what you said is you can change it. It's like as I looked up this family member that was dealing with this stuff, I was like, well, what are the things that I can do? And it's like cardio, weightlifting, and saunas. It was like, you want to work out for your, vasculature, jump in the sauna. And I was like, well, I don't have a sauna, but I was like, well, we've got these little like in Asia, they sell these little like tent saunas. It's like I don't know how much it is. It's like $15. And you put a little like boiling pot in there, you zip it up, and you're in a little mini sauna. And I was just like, I wish more people knew about those because so many people, it's prohibitively expensive to buy a sauna, but there's ways to do it. But one of the things, like, I wanted to ask you this too, because, you coach high performers on fitness. What's the one habit most people skip that changes everything?
Ooh. Um, I would just say movement throughout the day.
I love
Most
that.
if they're a high performer in their job, most of the time they're in meetings all day, they're sitting down a lot, they aren't moving throughout the day. And so having the habit of whether it is getting a standing desk and putting a, walking pad underneath it, or blocking times to take a quick walk around the block, or taking walking meetings, that habit is the biggest habit you can have when getting into fitness and becoming healthier. Um, Often, I would say it's on the same level as your diet. Those two go hand in hand. And so, if we're talking about habits, usually you can um, plan a bit better and have maybe better nutritional habits. And so what takes the most amount of time is how do I get activity in my day? And so it is just moving. Um, those high performers, they're head down in their work all day. And so how
Mhm.
do we break that almost break that momentum in a way to then get some movement and understand that it actually benefits your work as well. I think having that reward system is very important for high performers because that's what they thrive on. They're always chasing that next goal. And so how do we tie it back to what they're already experiencing at work? And it's this will actually make you a better performer at work because you'll get more blood flow to your brain. You'll be able to decrease any mental fog you may have. You'll be able to increase your energy throughout the day just by moving.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's one of the things too that I think people forget. And as I've grown my company, one of the things I've noticed is that I move less. And I don't like that. people require me to do this. I'm required to check in and do this. And, it's like I have all these responsibilities I got to go through.
Yep.
But yet I'm like trying to figure out, like, how can I keep moving in that process? Can I run off to the gym for an hour? Can I, do this or that? And it's hard. But one of the things that I started to do, and it was a non-negotiable change I had to make, was that I started blocking into my schedule an hour every morning to go to the gym, to run, to do something. And I wanted to do podcast appointments. I had a bunch of podcasts scheduled at that time, but I said, "You know what? There will be time out of the times of the day to do podcasts. That's my non-negotiable time." And it was something that
Yeah.
was super important to me. And then I'm trying to I got a couple kettlebells in here just around the room so that, every 10
Nice.
minutes I set a 15-minute timer and I stand up and I start doing some movements, whether it be kettlebell deadlifts or, kettlebell swings, just to get the blood flowing. Because you don't realize I read recently, so I've been flying a lot recently, and, um, 17-hour flights. We just had a 17-hour flight from, San Francisco to Singapore. Brutal, absolutely brutal. But one of the things that you notice, I had to start putting on, like, I wore some compression leggings and socks just because you don't realize the damage that is done to your body by sitting all day until you sit for a 17-hour flight. When you sit for 17 hours, you look at your feet, everything starts to swell, like
Yep.
you look at your ankles hurt, your knees hurt. And my wife was like, "Well, isn't your blood supposed to pump?" And I said, the venous system is based on movement. The venous system moves blood when the muscles contract and move, and there's a system of valves. Now, if you're not moving, those valves are not flowing, and like you start getting all this stagnation, and that stagnation ain't a good thing, which is where that basic movement is magical, but people don't think about it, Because also, again, it goes back to my other point, like a lot of people don't think they have time to work out, and yet what would you say to that?
You do.
Right?
I'll always have, as part of kind of the onboarding with the people I work with is, okay, what's the biggest reason you aren't doing the things you want to do now and you feel like you need a coach? And it's always time. That's always the number one. There's no getting around that. And it's everyone has the same 24 hours in the day, and you make priorities and trade-offs on what you do with those 24 hours. Now, sleep is arguably the most important time you have, so you want to safeguard your sleep. So we don't want to, you know, dive into your sleep in order to get things done if you aren't sleeping well. That's what we address. Um, so it's okay. Where do you have time? What are you spending your time on? How can you trade off? I have one guy who works 14-hour days right now,
Oh my
and
goodness.
his trade-off is, okay, instead of relaxing and watching Netflix for an hour before I go to bed, I'm going to hit the gym. That's gonna be what that's gonna be my relaxing time, even though people may not see the gym as relaxing. For him, it's a stress reliever after a crazy 14-hour day. Uh, that has become his personal time, and instead of watching an hour or an hour and a half of a show, he puts on 20 minutes of a show on the treadmill at the gym. Perfect. You still can combine some of that, relaxing time, um, while still getting done the things he would like to do. And I think it's deciding between good, better, and best throughout the day. There are certain things where you don't have control over. Maybe it's certain meetings. Maybe it's family time. Sometimes you don't have control over because maybe it's a kid's sports game. You don't want to miss that to go to the gym. That's nope. You want to prioritize family. But maybe if you're someone who wakes up and you just kind of take an hour to wake up, okay, set your alarm an hour earlier and go to the gym instead of just lounging around for the first little bit. Um, it's the trade-offs, and that's what we walk through. I say, walk me through your day. Walk me through from the moment your alarm goes off in the morning. What does your day look like? And let's find some time. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing either. I have several people where it's 3 days a week, and they're like, "That's all I have time for." And I'm like, "Fantastic! That's what we're going to work with because 3 days a week is good enough for building some muscle and building some strength, and then we integrate the activity, the movement into their actual life every day." But in terms of just dedicated time for strength training, that's where you have to start to make some trade-offs and start to figure out, okay, where can I block some time? But I have yet to find someone who can't do that.
My daughter runs a very has a very busy schedule. She goes to school. Today, she comes home, 5 PM, she has piano class. After that, she has, what do you call it? Extra class with a Vietnamese tutor and a math tutor. And then tomorrow, she'll come home and we go to Muay Thai at 6 PM. She comes home, she has another tutor. And then on the weekends, she's doing dance class, she's doing art class, she's doing like she's moving. And part of the reason is because like my in-laws were giving me crap for it. She loves it. Like, don't think she absolutely loves all her classes. And I have given her the option. Do you want to stop this or stop that? She says, no, I love it. She likes to do this stuff. And when we don't have the class, she goes up to grandpa and grandma's room and jumps on the tablet. And I'm like, we have a no device policy. And yet, I can't, it's a completely enforce what happens with grandpa and grandma in their apartment upstairs. It's like, it's a challenge. But yet, one of the things is like, there's a big, like, and this is not like different cultures by country, but different family cultures between my family and my wife's family. You know, love my father-in-law to pieces, but he lounges a lot during the day. Very industrious man, can make things, but then he just chills. And I'm bringing it up and throwing him under the bus because he of late has had a doctor tell him he needs to be moving more. And the doctor specifically said, you need to get up and you need to be active. You need to be moving. You got to exercise. And, and then but when he was complaining about my daughter having all these things that she was doing, I was like, we have to, inside ourselves, we have these two voices. We got, I've got, every one of us has my father in law up there going, come on, just take it easy. You can do it tomorrow. You ask him about exercise. Hey, are you going to exercise? Yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it becomes never, you know? And so I think one of the things that you have to do is I wanna start running again. Tomorrow morning, I've got a podcast early. That was one of the things that was a compromise. I moved it earlier, but I actually make sure I block out 2 hours of nap time in the afternoon when I have early stuff. And I feel rested and I feel good. So I spread my sleep around and it works actually. I read this one study on this really interesting study, and I don't know if it was right or not, but this guy was talking about, um, splitting up sleep times, and one of the things he said is, like, as long as you're getting, because I came from, the US where no one naps, but when I moved to Asia, everyone naps, and,
Yep.
they stay up really late, but they're all sleeping from, like, 12 to 1. And, and I noticed my business, everyone rests from 12 to 1. I give everyone an hour nap time. And you know what? Performance is much higher than if they don't. If they don't nap, everyone's dragging at 4 PM. Instead, it's like the second wind. But, it's interesting because tomorrow morning after my podcast, I'm taking my daughter to school, then I go to the gym. And it was like something that I planned. But like if you plan it, you can get there, but you have to figure out, like, one of my questions is once I start working out, I wanna ask you about this too, like, strength, growth, or endurance. Like, how does someone figure out which one they should be training for, you know?
It depends on goals. So I love training for something. So I was a runner. I always had a race I was training for. That's what motivated me to like get in the runs, get in the speed work, all that stuff because I was training for a race. When I shifted into strength training, it was a bodybuilding show, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm going for. I don't want to miss a session because I don't want to, I don't want to go up against someone who didn't miss a session, and now they're going to win. It's the competitive mindset. So some people are motivated by competition, and that'll determine, obviously I depre oh my gosh, deprioritized the running side of things because running is kind of an antithesis to strength training and muscle building. Your body wants to not retain as much mass as possible when running. So my cardio became walking and a bit of cycling. Um, because my goal shifted it. Now, for just your average person who wants to get into shape, it's a bit of both. And I say, the type of cardio matters a bit less. as long as your heart rate is getting elevated. So, um, if your heart rate is getting up kind of into that zone 2-ish area, which heart rate zones vary by person, um, but, elevating your heart rate a bit, not going crazy where you're completely out of breath, but zone 2, you can visualize it as you can carry on a conversation with someone next to you without running out of breath. Still, you're elevated, you're moving, but you can still have a conversation. Um, that can be walking on a treadmill at an incline, that can be on a bike, that can be on an elliptical. The type of cardio doesn't quite matter. Your goal may dictate the cardio, but then every program should have some sort of strength training because the muscle building activities matter a whole lot in the long term. And so whether it's 2 to 3 days a week, whether it's 6 days a week, that doesn't matter too much. Again, your goal may shift, but for your average person, 3 days a week is more than enough, 40 to 50 minutes per session. And what matters is kind of your effort and your nutrition too. You want to make sure you have enough protein to build that muscle that you're putting the effort into in the gym. And so the combo is what matters for your average person. If you're a competitive person, then obviously your goal dictates kind of what you deprioritize. But for your average person, you want a nice healthy combo of all of the above.
I love that. It's like when you can get a good mix of everything, it's just always better. Like, I think about it with food. When you get one meal, it ain't that great. But when you can kind of get a little bit of all this stuff, it balances everything out. So I love the idea of having it really mixed because you see this with different athletes too. The Some of the, like, long distance runners will be really thin, but they'll have great cardio. You wonder about that person when they get older, are they gonna be too thin, you know? But then you get the guys that are just, like, muscled out. Are they gonna be able to are they gonna be able to run from a leopard if it shows up on the scene? I have no I don't know if you could run from a leopard anyways, so, I mean, might be a losing battle on that one, but, I would wanna try. I would wanna try. Might fail, but I would wanna try. I mean, and I'm joking, but I'm not. I remember this video about a mom that was a little bit on the large side, and there's no judgment on anyone's size or shape, but what I wanna talk about is what happens in the story. It was a real video before all the AI generated shit that goes out. This was a real video, and it was on CCTV, and the mom fell down while pushing a stroller. And the stroller started rolling toward the street, and it was the most painful thing I've ever seen. She was struggling to stand up, but couldn't, and she was desperately and luckily, a person ran up and grabbed the stroller. She's in tears. But the absolute desperation about not being able to stand up to stop your stroller from running into the street, and I mean, it must have been heartbreaking for her. But I guarantee you, or at least I hope that was motivation to help her see maybe there's something you need to do. I go to the gym, and this sounds crazy, but like I try to think if there was like some type of disaster or thing that happened, I still train Muay Thai because I want to be the guy who can protect my family. And just sit there and I train with my daughter because I want her to be at some point in time, when she's older, to be the person who can protect herself. And I'll tell you this, she's trained for 2.5 years. Kid can pack a punch. I did not realize that. I was sparring with her and I was like, let's go. With whack. I was like, damn, that was amazing. It's like everything it used to be. But I wanted to ask you this because for people that are trying, like that lady that was trying to lose weight, what does sustainable weight loss actually look like day to day? Not the highlight reel, but like the real thing.
It's a 1-2 punch of nutrition and movement. We've already hit the movement side of things, so let's on nutrition, it's finding things that you can eat all the time that you don't get bored of and that are low in calories, high in protein.
Mm.
That's typically the goal. Nutrition is where people think they know a lot of, but they actually know nothing of. They
Right?
underestimate a ton of things there. And so your body's it's actually a pretty complicated system, but if you visualize it in a simple way, um, calories in versus calories out, that's two
Yeah.
sides of the equation. The activity increases your calories out. But if your calories in still outweighs your calories out, you will be in a weight gain mode over the course of
Mm,
time. It may be very small, but it's still there. If they're equal, then you'll just kind of hang out at maintenance. You won't really gain or lose fat. We'll use that caveat. And then if it's more than what you're bringing in, then you will be in more of a fat loss mode. And so with that equation in your mind, then you have two things to play with your activity side of things. You can move more. Uh, for people who historically have maybe higher propensity to just snack and eat throughout the day, and they have the time to move more throughout the day, we will focus on steps and they'll be more of a high step person. They'll be in like the 14 to 15,000 steps a day because I know it will be easier for them to do that than it will be to restrict their calories more. And so someone who's doing 15,000 steps a day can eat more than someone who's doing 8,000 steps a day just because they're moving more. Um, for someone who maybe has a bit more control over their nutrition, that's where we'll focus more, and maybe it's okay if their steps are only like 10,000 a day. Movement is still a part of the equation, but to make nutrition into a sustainable way of living, you wanna focus on things that people enjoy, so then it's not a drag to be like, "Oh, man, I"
right.
if they're not looking forward to a meal, then it's gonna be really hard to stick to that, and they're gonna choose to just have an entire pizza instead. I say that because I've been there. Um, so having that is important, and so I work with people and even people who aren't my clients, they come to me with questions and meal ideas, and, um, I think having the sustainable approach to nutrition is important, and if you pick around at least 80% of your nutrition is coming from whole nutrient dense foods. I like to say if it grows on the tree or in the ground or has a mom and dad, then it's a, whole nutritiously dense food. And so if you focus on that for at least 80% of your diet, there's a really good chance that you will be lower in calories than if you didn't do that. And you will train your body to realize, hey, having a steak with some potatoes is actually delicious because it is. Like, who doesn't love a steak? Um, so having something that's good, that you enjoy, that you look forward to, and that's maybe a bit lower in calories, perfect. That's how you make it sustainable.
Yeah. I love that the joy in exercise and fitness because one of the things that I'm thinking about is like when we were kids, exercise was easy. Like we would go out and just do it. How we didn't die, I don't know. I'm an exennial. My mom bought us BB guns, bows and arrows, and rollerblades, and we went and we fucked around and we found out like quite a bit, quite a bit. We did stuff that was pretty stupid, and the matter of fact is, at the end of the day, it was fun. I broke both of my arms rollerblading. You know what I did right after they healed up or I got my cast on? I went back out and did it, you
Mhm.
know? And because it was stuff that was really fun for us. And I think one of the best things that my mom ever did for me was that I got to um one summer, she took us out and she let us try all the sports. Like, what does that mean? Like, she signed us up for everything. Everything you could imagine, she signed us up for. And it was pretty cool because at the end of the summer, um, I learned something really interesting. I learned what I didn't like. I learned that there was a lot of stuff that I was not a fan of, and beyond that, not really that great at. But you know what I did find? There were sports that I loved. Martial arts, I loved it. And not just that, I was good at it. I was good at doing this activity. And that passion allowed me to keep showing up. So when I got to college, I found a great martial arts teacher and I just started studying judo and I would go every day. And it was interesting because I also played volleyball. I played competitive volleyball. I played for my college's team. And, I, but it got to the point where it just wasn't fun. and I stopped doing it because it was so competitive and so stressful at times that I just was like, I wanted to have fun with it, you know? And so what I found though is that I was able to do a mix. I played some volleyball. I went to the gym. I found like I didn't grow up training in the gym. But then when I started to, I realized, man, this is a lot of fun. I wish I'd have done this a lot longer. But I had to kind of get over a mental hurdle of the people that were in the gym because
Yes.
the people that were in there were one of the biggest obstacles for me. And I'm explaining what I'm going to say there. So often we have this culture in the fitness community, and I would say I'm part of it at times, that is not very welcoming to people that are not. Like, I still see videos of people like fitfluencers that are posting people shaming people for doing things wrong in the gym. Or maybe you walked into someone's shot. Like, God forbid that they walk in the background while you're trying to film, you know? But one of the things I think is like we have to make like getting into fitness more welcoming for people.
Yeah, that I've worked with a couple people where that was a big barrier, and I have been the person who films in the gym. I'm much nicer. I could care less. Like it's their gym too, so who cares?
That's
There,
awesome, right?
yeah, yeah, but that's a real thing. The gym anxiety of what will other people think of me? Am I doing this right?
Yep.
And unfortunately, there are a very it's a tiny percentage of people who maybe do like judge other people like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. But I would say
Most people
99.9% of
want you to
people,
be there. Yep.
yeah, they want you to be there. Like I celebrate people who it's obvious it's their first day there. Um, and sometimes I'll walk up and be like, "Hey, awesome you're here. Let me know if you have any questions because I'm a coach and so I can help you walk through anything." I've had few people take me up on that. It's been really cool. The key thing that I think helps some people is it may seem like a difficult culture to be a part of because it's somewhat selfish, right? Everyone's there to focus on
Mm,
themselves. And that can be freeing in a way where, okay, no one is paying attention to
no
me
one
because
cares.
they're
Right.
paying attention to themselves. They're trying to improve
Right.
themselves. So no one cares. But also we've all been there. We've all been the newest person in the gym. That's how you
Right.
get started. Um, and I think having going with a friend is huge. Someone who
Yeah.
already is going to the gym, that's a big one for a lot of people. Another one is even just finding it can be any program. You don't pay for any program because you don't need to nowadays. You can ask ChatGPT to write one up, but like find something that at least walks you through. Okay, here are some movements that you can do in the gym. Here's what they look like. You can find some videos and that way you at least have somewhat of a plan. You're not just showing
Yeah.
up to the gym saying, "Okay, what do I do?" Um,
Right.
I always recommend people do that. I've even given people prompts of like, "Go put this in a chat GPT or Claude or whatever. It'll spit out something specific for you, and just start with that." I started
Yeah.
with a program that I think I saw some influencer do on they did a video on and I just like took notes of like, okay, this is what they're doing. And then I just watched that video in the gym and like, okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, that feels like I'm hitting something cool. And then you progress from there. What you do in the first month of going to the gym, the goal is to get consistent. The goal isn't
Yes.
to perfect the movement yet. You're not there. Your goal is to get consistent to the point where it becomes a habit of going. And you mentioned earlier that okay, you drop your daughter off at school and then you go to the gym. To become consistent, tying it to something like that where it's just already something you're doing during the day is big. And it's hugely important when you're just getting started because the motivation will run out eventually. And so what keeps you going to the gym when there's no motivation to go to the gym? When you wake up early and you're like, "Huh, it's cold out. I don't really want to get out of the bed. I don't really want to do it." Okay, well, what keeps you going? And I think seeing the progress in the gym over time is one of those things that is kind of motivating internally, um, or having a friend who motivates you or a coach or whatever it is. Getting
Yes.
consistent is what matters the most when you're first going to the gym.
One of the things I think is hard is the in between stage where you're not seeing the results. My daughter, I've had her with a very challenging piano teacher,
Nice.
and she was just making her do these chords or like progressions. Da 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 da.
Mhm.
But today she says, "Okay, you've done both of these activities so much. Now we're gonna put them together." And she had done these so many times that it was like second nature. She knew them both instinctively. And when she put them together, suddenly she realized she was playing a song. And it wasn't just a basic song, it was an extremely intricate song. But because the teacher had worked both of them piece by piece by piece, my daughter didn't even see what was being put together. And then suddenly it was this, oh my goodness, that's amazing. But it was amazing because she had been working on it so long and didn't see the progress coming along. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I think is really interesting because as we're on this journey of health, most people overcomplicate health. And I want to ask you this, like, what's the simplest version of the formula that actually works? What do people really just need to be doing?
Activity plus nutrition.
Mm.
That's
There you go.
that's it in its simplest form. Um, you mentioned she was doing those chords over and over and over and maybe not seeing progress. There was probably minuscule progress every single time. It's so
100%.
minuscule that where she didn't realize it, right? The
Mhm.
thing that kind of sucks about getting into fitness and getting in shape is you're doing a lot of the same things over the course of a really long time.
Yeah.
You're not going to see massive muscle progress from week 1 to week 2. That's just not how it's going to happen. But from month 1 to month 3 or 4, you will see quite a bit. From month 1 to month 12, you will be unrecognizable.
Yeah.
A year's a really long time to do the same thing week in and week out, even day in and day out. And I've even had, some people will comment on working with me like, "I've kind of done the same exercises for the last few months, and I like, do we switch it up at any point?" And I'm like, "Well, do you enjoy the movements?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, they're good." And I show them the chart of their progress over time and their increase in weights that they're able to move. I'm like, "You're still progressing.
Yeah.
There's no reason to mix it up right now because you're still building muscle. You enjoy the movements, and this just takes time." And
Yeah.
that's something that people severely underestimate is that quantifier, right? So you have the activity plus nutrition, but then it's multiplied by time. So the time part is what people underestimate. So the simplicity part is important, but they underestimate that this takes time. And I
Yeah.
think that's what people get wrong. And that's what they overcomplicate is after a couple weeks, they switch something up and it may completely mess up their progress or it stalls their progress on what they were working on. And then they
Yeah.
start over progress on something else. And so that time factor is I think what messes people up.
I was like, I think that, social media doesn't help because people start looking at all of the gains that people are getting online. They don't realize like those people might have personal trainers. They might have everything set up for them. And I mean, certainly you can get the tools that they can get. But the reality is, it's like you have to set reasonable expectations, and to have the vision and the goals that keep you showing up. For me, um, I keep going to Muay Thai class because A, I love doing it with my daughter, and B, I feel good afterwards, and I think that that's the thing too, is like we are so goal oriented that we forget sometimes that the journey is the important thing. Like, I want to have the beach bod. Well, yeah, man, that's great. But isn't it great to feel better like than
Right.
yesterday?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I'll interrupt you there for a second
Please
because
do.
the things that fitness influencers do that drive me absolutely insane is they will say, "Do this movement to have a body like me," or like, "This is how I built this body." And it's like the dumbest movement, and
Yeah.
they're doing it because people are like, "Oh, I've never seen that before." And so it gets views and comments, and that's how it goes viral. But that's not how they built that body. They built that body with the fundamentals of strength training
Yep.
over the course of time with proper nutrition and like 90% of them with the help of steroids. So that
Right?
so that's unrealistic, but they're doing it because it gets views, and they shift, they're able to pique the mindset of, or the interest of some people that are watching them, like, oh, that's interesting, I've never seen that before. But you will not get that body with that movement almost ever.
I think that we also have to learn about what works for us.
Right.
I'm a 40-something-year-old dad, and when I go to Muay Thai class, I'm not training with the pro fighters, man. We have a bunch of them in my gym. I love and respect those guys, but they're like, "Hey, you wanna spar?" I'm like, "Fuck no. No, I do not, because 'cause you'll beat the shit out of me.
Mhm.
I wanna be here. I wanna get a great workout. I wanna go home feeling better than when I came. I don't want any, CTE. I don't need to be getting head in the head a lot, but I do wanna, like, sit there, put some pads on, and spar with some guys, and understand that, like, to each their own, but you gotta know where you're at. Like, I you see those videos of people pictures of people, they're like, "I didn't work out in 5 years," or like, I had this one video that I was watching this guy, and he was like, decided he wanted to go run in a race. He's like, "I used to run, now I'm 45, but, I haven't run in a while," and then he tries to run away race, pulls a hammy, and then he's laid up for forever. Well, my wife was coming back after getting back in shape after she had our daughter. She went to work with this one trainer, nice guy, really cool person. Well, one of the challenges was that he kept pushing her way too hard. He would work out squats, 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 and it's interesting because he created this mindset that she was just miserable. She couldn't walk for 4 days afterwards, didn't wanna go back to the gym. And I finally found a different coach that met her where she was at. Pushed her? Yes, but didn't take her to this point of, like, severe burnout and exhaustion, and what she was
Yep.
able to do is she was able to keep it up and enjoy it, and that person was a dance teacher also, and she incorporated more dance than anything. Um, so it was interesting because, when you can again find something that makes it fun, and my wife loves dance, it was something that she could keep up and continue. But I wanted to ask you this because we are in the same boat in a lot of ways. You're a dad running a business, and I'm with you on that, man. Like, how do you protect your physical and mental energy? You know, I'm juggling a lot of things, and then I was looking for a lot of work, and before I founded my company, it's just this being a dad, there's a lot. You got a lot on your plate. How do you balance all the stuff that you go through, all the mental energy, physical energy, while life is in chaos, and keep your own wellness in a place that is balanced?
I'm not the perfect person at this because I'm still figuring it out. It's our first daughter and she's 9 months old. So I'm still like, okay, what's working, what's not working? What can we control? What can't we control? Obviously, we can't control our daughter, waking up in the middle of the night because maybe she's not feeling well or something. Can't control
Yeah.
that. What I found that has helped me is I wake up at the same time every day, regardless of how my daughter slept. Some days, wonderful. Some days it's a drag to get out of bed, and that's just life. But that's the anchor to my day, because getting up at the same time, for me, I work out in the morning first thing. I wake up early, um, before my wife and daughter are awake. Hopefully, my daughter. Hopefully, she's
Right.
still asleep. Um, and that is my time. That was the biggest shift for me. Is all of a sudden my time was gone, and it
Yep.
was okay. I need some of that back because that helps me bring sanity. And so it is, our daughter sometimes, just based on her nap schedule, maybe she wakes up from a nap late, and so then it cuts into the evening time. And I realized very quickly, okay, my time may not be in the evening because there are certain things I can't control, to where maybe it overlaps and then it's gone. So morning was that time. You want to have that important conversation with your spouse to say, okay, let's figure out our days. When is your time? When is my time? Make sure we have that. So we decided mine is first thing in the morning, and I use that to go to the gym. But because I do it every day, I go to the gym 5 days a week. So on the other 2 days, I use that. I'm a gamer, so I use it to play some video games first thing in the morning. Like
Nice.
that's fine. Like who? Okay, great. Um, so then it's still my time, but I get to choose what I do with it. Obviously, you'd hope it skews towards activity and being in shape and exercise. Um, so I think that's been the biggest factor to it. So then the chaos of the day doesn't disrupt improving yourself or dedicating some time to yourself, because the day will be chaos, as I've quickly found out over the last 9 months. There's very little you can control during the day. There's a lot you can, and it's important to do that. But I think that's the important part is finding however much time you can. For me, it's an hour. That's what is kind of the anchor in your day, regardless of where it's at.
I love that. There's 2 things there that you're talking speaking my language. First of all is, dichotomy of control. Control what you can and let go of the rest. Um,
Which is
you
hard.
know, it is, and because it's like and in life, you can't control everything, but you can figure out the parts that are important to you and then kinda show up for the rest, you know?
Mhm.
One of the things too, like, I found that the better that I take care of myself, the better my body performs, and my employees are always sick, like, always sick, and I'm trying to figure out, "What are you guys doing?" Like, I asked them, I was like and it's like and I'm not they're not taking days off, but they're just n nose running, coughing, sneezing, and I rarely get sick, and I was asking him, I was like, "What are you guys doing?" That's and they're like, they point out, they're like, "Mr. Sean, you eat really healthy." And I said, "Yeah." And, like, they're like, you go to the gym." And I said, "Are you guys not eating healthy?" They're like, "No, I snack a lot. I don't" and none of them work out. And I think that that's one of the things that I would say is a big, difference is that they're just not exercising. And I think that it is really a problem, but that leads to my question, like, what's the relationship between how you treat your body and performance in business and other areas?
Oh, it's night and day. I vividly remember my friend that I worked with. He where was he at? I think he was weighing in at about 285 pounds, and he came to me saying, "I want to be able to play with my kids," but he's also a business owner, had a couple businesses. And he's like, "I feel like crap at work all the time. I just feel bad. Like, help me clear up brain fog, help me feel better at work, help me be able to play with my kids." That was the big motivator. But he's like, "I feel like crap during the day, so help me do that." And unfortunately, a lot of the fitness industry will immediately turn to supplements. And with him, it was,
Mhm.
"All right, let's dive into your diet. Let's fix that." And within 2 weeks of fixing his diet and moving, he didn't really move throughout the day, and he was hitting 10,000 steps a day every day. Um, he came back to me after 2 weeks without any prompt from me. He just, kicked off our weekly call with, "Caleb, I feel, like the brain fog is gone." Like, I was expecting you to come to me like, "Okay, here are the supplements you're gonna take, do this, do" he's like, "What how is it gone?" And I'm like, "'Cause you're eating right again. You're feeding your body the nutrients it so desperately needs." And so, yeah, your brain fog is gonna clear up pretty quickly because you're not drowning it with things it doesn't need and things it has to, overly process and get rid of, and it you're doing that and you're moving more, so you're promoting good blood flow through your brain, and that's what helps. And it was pretty cool to see that because I hadn't really ever dealt too much with that before, or at least I didn't notice it. But to see that change in him that quickly just hit home. Like, yeah, your nutrition plays the biggest part to how you feel throughout the day. And so if you're snacking on chips and going out to drink every night and just not taking care of your body's gonna reward you with the brain fog and not feeling good during the day. And so therefore you won't be a good performer at work.
It's so true. If you're caught up in all the little things and you're not one of the things too, I'm reading this great book, it's called The One Thing, and the guy really talks about focusing in on the things that are actually gonna get you there, because we do all this stuff, but really, you don't need to do as much, but you do need to focus on the things that are really gonna help you, because it's like, a high performer, it's interesting we talk about the high performer and we think that it's a person who does more. But the reality is we need to shift it to be a person who does the right things, like, because maybe you're busy, but you're not actually getting done everything you need to, like your exercise and sleeping well. So, a high performer comes to you completely burned out. Where do you start?
Ooh. I'll typically have them walk through their day. Usually I'll
Mm.
just say, "Tell me what your day was like yesterday." Like, walk me through every little thing, from the moment you wake up to the moment you went to sleep. Um, them going through that exercise themselves sometimes, turns on in their brain like, "Oh, I did this and I didn't really need to." Um, Bringing that awareness to that, I think is key. I didn't do anything. All I did was just prompt them, like, give me every intricate detail of everything you did. And then through that activity, they're like, huh, yeah, I did this. I probably didn't need to. Or I did this and yeah, that took 2 hours, but the results of that were nothing. Um, and we also typically uncover, a spot where they can get out and go for a walk real quick, because
Within
they were spending time on something that really didn't matter at all. And then they could take that 15 minutes and just walk around their neighborhood or walk around the block. Um, and then that would have more impact on their day than what they were spending that time with. So I think, it's the same with like tracking your calories. People are oftentimes not they're a little apprehensive to doing that, but that's something I encourage people to do at least for a couple weeks because then it brings awareness to, holy cow, I didn't think this was this many calories and I'm eating it every day. Okay, maybe something needs to change. So just bringing awareness, whether it's to your day as a high performer and seeing how to better optimize your day or nutrition or even your exercise, like just writing it down and keeping track and then bringing awareness to what are you actually doing, that then, dovetails into, okay, I can maybe spend my time a bit better.
I love that. I wanted to ask you another question because it's got me thinking, like, if someone comes to you and they really wanna make a change, but they could start changing one thing starting tomorrow to feel better in 30 days, what would you tell them to do first?
Ooh. First, I would have them track what they eat,
Mm,
and then it would be make those shifts.
yeah.
Um, Make the shifts to eat healthier, to eat more whole foods, more single ingredient foods, or things that don't have a nutrition label. Um, to feel better in 30 days, I think that has the biggest impact on how you feel.
I think so. I love this too because it's like I had a doctor that was working with me, and he's like, "What is the one thing that you're complaining about most?"
Mm.
And for me, it was I had an achy back. I had this sore spot from an old injury. And so he says, "All right, well, one thing that you can do is to start lifting to strengthen your back." And I was going in and it was just like it was like magic how it was able to shift that. Oh, I want to have better cardio. What's the one thing you can start walking today? Start moving. I think you got to identify some of the things that are important to you to shift, and then you don't start with like, I wanna run a marathon. Well, that's great, but, like, how can we get there? Alright, well, I wanna be a runner. Okay, that's a good starting point. That's something that we can actually look at and figure out. Let's see how we can get you to be more into running, and it's like you start down that path. But why do you wanna be a runner? I think getting down and really hammering on the why is so important. But, like, I wanna ask you this last question, and I appreciate you taking all this time. If
Of
you
course.
had to give your younger self one piece of advice, what advice would you give your younger self?
Go to the gym and fall in love with it. I didn't start my lifting journey until about 3.5 years ago, and I'm
Mm.
35, 34. So I didn't start until I was in my 30s. And so I regret not going when I was younger because it does take time to get where you want to go. If I had an extra 10 years under my belt, it'd be a very different story right now. Um, but I don't know. I didn't do that. And so knowing what I know now, that would be what I would tell my younger self. You know, nutrition is what it is, and yeah, sure, eat healthier as a young kid, sure. But I think seeing the impacts of that, I think would have changed a lot of my habits over the course of my life so far. So I think that would be what I would tell my younger self.
I love that. It's those little things that have big impacts, those little things that you don't necessarily, um, think about, you know? You don't think about how they're gonna add up. It's like people I have my Growing Money podcast, and people, they tell them, "Put, a little bit of money aside every day." And that little bit of money that you're putting aside every day might seem small, you know, but it turns into something really big over time. And I think that's one of the things I would tell people is get get in there. Get into doing that thing that you love and then just keep showing up. And your future self is going to be really happy you did. Where can people go to find out more about you and what you do?
Honestly, LinkedIn is the best platform. I'm most active there. Just my name, Caleb Whittle. There, you'll look for a guy with a stash.
That's awesome.
That's where you can find me. I connect with almost everyone. I respond to DMs there. That's probably the best spot.